Здравейте, Свраки! Добре дошли в поредния епизод на Svrakast. Днес сме ви приготвили една страхотна изненада. Първо, наш гост е Андрей Аврамов, всеизвестен фен на Нюкасъл. Андро, здравей!
Здрасти, Влади, и здрасти на всички приятели, които гледат.
Здрасти, добър вечер. И наш специален гост е бившият футболист и капитан на Newcastle United Уорън Бартън. Мистер Бартън, hello!
Hi, gentlemen. How are you? Pleasure to speak with you, and looking forward to reminiscing, but also looking about the future for Newcastle. So, thanks for having me on.
Lovely to have you. Thank you for dedicating a piece of your time with us. So, what are you up to now? I heard that you've been in sunny California. Here it's quite windy, snowy. So, how are you? All good, I hope?
Yeah, I'm very good. I don't want to make you too jealous. It's 70 degrees here. I retired from playing football back in the UK in 2005, 2006. I did some media work, and then I had the opportunity to come out to America in 2008 and been working with Fox with the Premier League, Champions League, World Cup, Bundesliga and MLS. And also been doing some coaching, but obviously always keeping an eye on my beloved Newcastle to see how they're doing. So yeah, I'm enjoying my life. I was lucky enough to be allowed to come into the US, so I'm enjoying my life here. But I miss the football back home. I miss the Geordies and the Toon Army. But I can always go back and visit them. But it's it's a special place, and I'm very lucky. I still keep involved in the game, coaching my young boys who are now older. But obviously, I keep a big eye on the Premier League.
Fantastic. We saw you. You were back for the game against Cambridge. We go from time to time to some football games. I was at the game with Everton 2 weeks ago. How often do you go back to Newcastle to see games live? Do you have the chance to do it more often? I know with COVID you couldn't do it in the past 2 years.
You picked the better games than I did, going to watch Cambridge
exactly.
and Everton. You had a good time. Obviously through COVID it was difficult. And even before with the ownership, I'm not saying they never invited us, but you was never felt welcome to go back. It was always a difficult scenario. A little story, even when the Newcastle team come out for pre-season in America, I reached out to the club and said, look, could I come down training? Do you want me to meet the fans? Do you want me to just be around the club? And they said no. They didn't want us around. So it's fine. That's how it was. But I try and go at least 2 or 3 times a year. I've still got my family, my brother, sister, and my mum, who was actually just with me for a month. So I go back to England, and when I go back to England, I go up to Newcastle at least twice a year to go and see everybody. And I went back about 2018 with my youngest son and took a football team that he had here, and we went to Barcelona, Porto, Newcastle, and Glasgow Rangers. And I was a little bit embarrassed when I went back to the club because it was just left to rot. The stadium didn't look great. There wasn't a feel-good factor around the stadium. And when I went back, fast forward to the Cambridge game, even though the result and the performance wasn't great, there was just a different atmosphere in the stadium. There was a different atmosphere in the city. And that all comes from the new ownership. It comes from the positivity coming from the players, the coach in particular. But I can't tell you how pleased I was when I went back. And you probably felt the same when you went to the Everton game. There was a sense of pride, which hasn't been at that club for a long time.
Yeah, we'll talk. I want to ask you about the new ownership and the new mood around Newcastle, but let's talk about the entertainers, because you were part of that fantastic team back in the 90s where a lot of the fans in Bulgaria became fans of Newcastle, including myself and Vladi. We became fans because of Keegan and because of the style of football that you were playing at the time. You played, like, roughly, I was checking the stats, 220 games for Newcastle, and you were a captain when Shearer was injured, and you played Champions League, FA Cup finals. You played a lot of games. What's your best memory from your playing days? I know maybe it might be difficult to pick one, but when you hear Newcastle United, what's your first association?
Yeah, I think it is the entertainers, and it's great that you've got one of the shirts on as well, the away shirt, which is an iconic shirt for Newcastle. The black and white granddad collar shirt with the Newcastle brown owl. I remember coming to Bulgaria and we had quite a good day, actually. We won the game, and with celebration. There's a picture that I remember with me, Gary Speed, Noberto Solano, and Tamuri Kitspire enjoying a goal that we scored. And when I think of Newcastle, I smile because it was fun. And people, it's an obvious question, what is your greatest memory being at Newcastle? And I can honestly say every single day, I loved it. You know, playing for a club like Newcastle, and as you said, I was captain as well when unfortunately Alan was injured. But just being there, part of the entertainers and the style of football that we played with Kevin Keegan. You know, we look at Pep Guardiola and we reminisce and say how great his style of football is with Kevin. You know, when we beat Manchester United 5-0 and you have your centre-back, Philip Albert, chipping Peter Schmeichel on the edge of the box. That was what we was. We was box office. David Ginola, Tino Asprilla, Les Ferdinand, Peter Beardsley, Alan Shearer, Rob Lee, Gary Speed, you know, these type of players, Shay Given, Shaka Hislop, you know, Pavel Cernacek. They was wonderful players and good characters. And we had a real affinity with the fans and the city. We felt that responsibility. And sometimes it can suffocate you. You know, even a wonderful player like John Dale Thomason, the expectations of playing for someone like Newcastle. I mean, John Dale Thomason went and played for AC Milan and won a Champions League. But at that time when he was so young, it can suffocate you. But we thrived in that atmosphere. We thrived of playing at St. James's Park when it was a full house and the expectations are high. Beating Barcelona 3-2 in the Champions League with Tino Asprilla getting a hat-trick. You know, winning semi-finals, playing at Wembley. You know, they're the things that I think about. But when I think about Newcastle, it's that pride and that responsibility of playing for that club, knowing that then people have worked hard Monday to Friday, and come the weekend, you better entertain them. And listen, we failed. We didn't win the Premier League. We come second twice. You know, unfortunately, 2 FA Cup finals against the Arsenal team that won the double and Manchester United that won the treble in '99. We come up short. But every single fan knew that we tried our best. And sometimes it was good enough and sometimes it wasn't. And, you know, the players that we had at that time were good people, good players. And they understood when we was taught by Kevin Keegan, Sir Bobby Robson, what it is to play for that club. And the local boys, Lee Clark, Steve Watson, Peter Beardsley, Robbie Elliott, Steve Howie, they made it pretty clear earlier on that you was playing for a special club. And we knew that. And we had great times and wonderful time on the field and off the field as well. And that doesn't mean drinking in bars and going crazy, but I just mean in training, being around each other. We, you know, now we always keep in contact with a Ginola or Les. When I went back to England to the Cambridge game, you know, me and Les made a point to meet up, to be together. And we only played 2 years with each other. But I would say arguably it's the best 2 years we've ever had in our career because it was such a special time. Alan, I keep in contact. Rob Lee, obviously I played with Derby afterwards. The great Gary Speed, unfortunately, you know, he took his life, but I was good friends with Gary and Shay Given, and the list goes on. You know, I could bump into David Batty and Philip Albert and we'd have 2 hours of laughing and joking. And then we might actually talk about football. And that's the relationship that we had. And it's, as I said, special time. And, you know, that's why I'm so pleased, not for me or for David or for Peter or for Les or Alan, but for the people of Newcastle and the fans of Newcastle all over the world, because I get it over here in America. There's fans all over, whether it's in San Diego, Chicago, New York, Portland, they're all over the place. And I'm pleased for them to have some pride back in their football club because it means so much to everybody. And like you said, you fell in love with the way that we played and how we was in Bulgaria, you know, and that was just a one-off. And that's the impact them fans have, you know, when they travel, they laugh, they joke, they entertain. There's a certain rapport when you're a Newcastle fan that you have a responsibility, very much like the Irish fans when they travel in World Cups. They enjoy themselves, you know, they have a good time and they support their team, and we feel like that. So just immense enjoyment of the nearly 8 years that I spent there in 220 games, because, you know, turning up for training, sorry to go on so long, but it comes out of me, my, you know, thinking about it, is that going to training at Maiden Castle, which is just south of Newcastle in a place called Durham, we used to have 4,000 or 5,000 people watch us train in the snow, in the rain, and have hamburger stalls and coffee shops turning up so the fans could keep warm. And we wasn't allowed to leave until we signed every autograph by Kevin Keegan, Sir Bobby. And that's unique. That doesn't happen, you know. And even like 20 years ago, I'm talking about like now, obviously the game has changed and things have gone a little bit different in social media and, you know, the privacy of the players and the training ground. But it was an open house and the fans loved it. And, you know, maybe if you would have traveled over to Bulgaria, you could have come and, you know, been within 3 feet of David Ginola and you know, shook Kevin Keegan's hand. That's what we was. We was about the people. We was about the fans. And that's why I think, you know, we have such a good rapport with the people. You know, a lot of fans are young and they haven't had that experience. You know, they've only had the 14 years of doom and gloom, but hopefully now it's on the horizon of what we had, and we had that for 7 or 8 years of doing that, even before I come, you know, in the Premier League when they finished third beforehand. And then, you know, we went on and challenged Manchester United toe to toe to try and win it. It's a special place. And I think you know that, because when you go there, it's just a feeling when you're over there in the bars, walking around, there's just excitement going on. And that's great to see it back for the city.
Fantastic. Thank you for these memories. When you joined Newcastle back in '95, you were at the time the most expensive defender in England. How did that make you feel? And a side question to this, I know I didn't see your 3 games for the national team, but I know that you have 3 call-ups. Do you feel disappointed that you didn't continue in the national team? And did it have to do with competition in the England national team and how you're performing in Newcastle? But mainly I'm interested in the burden, psychological burden, if any, of being the most expensive defender, or this kind of, you know, it gave you confidence and it helped you basically on the field.
Yeah, I just want to go back as well. When I was a young boy trying to get into the game to play football, like every kid all over the world, particularly in Europe, you know, it's the #1 sport in Bulgaria, you know, whether it's in England or Germany, wherever you play, it's the #1 sport. And I got told twice I was too small at 13 at Watford, and at a lower level team, which is in the lower ranks of England, in a team called Leyton Orient at 16, you're too small. And then to fast forward 6 years later, you're a record for a defender for Newcastle. For me, it was a lot of pride. You know, someone like Harry Maguire, who, whatever millions he is, sometimes can be a burden, as I said to you. But I felt it as an immense pride of what I've gone through, playing lower league, and then to actually be someone's willing to pay that. And at the time, you know, I had Everton, Man City, Arsenal, Celtic was involved, Blackburn wanted to buy me. So, you know, there was a little bit of a bidding war. And for someone like Kevin Keegan to Newcastle to come in and pay that money was immense pride. Probably what took the pressure off a little bit. 2 days later, Les Ferdinand got bought for $6 million. So then I was no longer a record for Newcastle. I was still a record for a defender. I wasn't a record for Newcastle United. So Les come in and took that man to offer me, which was quite nice. And a lot of attention went on Les. And as for England, you know, growing up, Arsenal fan. So growing up in North London, I remember a guy called Alan Sunderland. He scored the winning goal in a cup final against Manchester United in 1979. And he ran the length of the field celebrating this goal and playing at a FA Cup final. And from that day, I wanted to be in a cup final. I wanted to walk along Wembley. I wanted to see the Twin Towers and play on Wembley. And also seeing Brian Robson in the '82 World Cup score a goal against France, I believe. And seeing Brian Robson play wanted me to play for England. And that's the things. And when I, you know, go fast forward a little bit now to say, you know, you got told twice you was too small. You played for England, played in the Champions League. You played for arguably one of the biggest clubs and was the most expensive defender. I have a lot of satisfaction. The only thing that was missing is a bloody medal. You know, that's the thing I would have wanted, and to have that. And the England thing was, you know, at the time, Gary Neville was breaking through and had a great relationship with David Beckham. And listen, Gary was a wonderful player and won numerous trophies and play at a high level. But also beneath that, you had Lee Dixon playing for Arsenal. You know, we have a similar scenario now. But if you go back 5 years, England probably had right backs, which was Glenn Johnson and Mecca Richards. Really, they had a spell of 6 or 7 years. There wasn't too many fullbacks that was breaking forward. There's a lot of foreign fullbacks playing in the top flight. But you fast forward now, and you know, at that time I had Lee Dixon, you know, Gary Neville, Richard Hedgill was breaking forward. He was a young boy. Rob Jones was at Liverpool. Earl Barrett was a stable defender. Paul Parker was still playing. David Beardsley at Queen's Park Rangers. So there was like 7 English right backs playing in the Premier League week in, week out. And, you know, I'm proud of what I achieved. Of course, I would have loved to have more. But, you know, there was competition for that spot. And, you know, when I went to Newcastle, we was playing well. And, you know, at the end of the day, I would have loved to have more. But I got back in the squad with Glenn Hoddle. But as I said, you know, Gary played 10 years consistently very, very well with David, obviously Beckham, and had a great relationship and went on. So I've got no qualms. You know, obviously, I think I can play and had a lot to offer. But I think when you look back at the competition that we had at that time, there was a lot of good players and a lot of English right backs. I remember, you know, on the left-hand side, there was Graham Lasso and Stuart Pearce. There wasn't any, you know, Ashley Cole come a little bit later, and then Ashley dominated for 10 years, a bit like Gary. You know, it's a bit of a closed shop. When you think of England fullbacks, you know, Ashley Cole, John Terry, Rio Ferdinand, you know, Gary Neville, how we never went on and done well in major tournaments is baffling, because they was excellent players. But, you know, I love playing for England. I played at Wembley. A great story for me, my last cap was at Wembley, Brazil. Take that. If someone had offered me when I was 8, 9, 10 years of age, that's what you're going to be, your lasting memories, I'd take that. But yeah, you know, you still want more. That's what professional people want. They want to be the best. But I was trying to kick Gary Neville every time I played on the left to see at least if I can get some games into him. But he always kept running out the way. But it was one of the things. But it was all good. Listen, there's a lot of good players that never played for England. A lot of top players, you know, Steve Bruce. As much as maybe Newcastle fans are not endeared to him as a manager, as a player, he was a top class player and a leader, and he never played. So there's been some good players that haven't played for England.
Actually, you had very stiff competition in Newcastle. I liked very much yourself and Steve Watson, and you were competing for 2 years, like for a spot. Although both of you started against that famous Barcelona game, what was your relationship with him, and how was the competition within the squad with Watto?
Yeah,
and
no,
how
it was
Keegan, and how was Keegan choosing one or the other? Did he give any insight on why was he choosing you over him, or how did it work?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Steve was already there and made his debut when he was 16. Steve Watson was a very good player. Probably he was so versatile. He played centre half, and we played Liverpool. And you're talking about Pep. He played as like a false 9. We played Watto up there, and he's that famous chip at Anfield in a cup game. He scored the winning goal. And Watto was a player that could play in numerous positions. And, you know, I remember speaking to Steve, because Steve was a little bit younger than me. I said, you know, you try and find your position. Don't be Mr. Versatile. It's quite ironic, because when Kenny Dalglish come, I played as a holding midfield player. And that's where Kevin Keegan see me to play as a holding midfield player to get on the ball. But, you know, David Batty was a better player than me in that position. Keegan, when he bought me, looked at John Beresford as he wanted both of his fullbacks to push on, to get forward, and your first thought is to give us an option wide. Steve wasn't maybe athletic, but his first thought is to play there. His game was to play forward. My thing was to play and go. That was I wanted to go up and down. I'd make 5 or 6 runs. I may not get the ball, but the 6th one, I might get it and be able to cross the ball. So Kevin wanted his fullbacks to push on. Probably where in the season that I played, I think it was like 32 games out of 38 games. That's where he wanted his fullbacks to play. Throw in that Watto obviously was a bit versatile. So if Steve Howie got injured, or Philip or Peasy got injured, Darren Peacock got injured, Watto could slide in there and to play in that position. And then obviously then Steve left and went off. So our relationship was really good. There's obviously that competitive edge. You know, when Aaron Hughes started to break in, as much as I loved Aaron, he was a lovely kid. He was after my position, and Andy Griffin come in from Stoke, a young boy, talented player, could play left, could play right. You know, he was brought in to come in, but your nature is to try and play. I wanted to play. I didn't go to Newcastle to be a squad player. They didn't pay $4 million for me to be on the bench. So, you know, as my career went on with Newcastle, I played in a few different positions, and as you said, so Bobby Robson at the end of 2002, 2003 said to me, look, you're not going to play all the time. You know, you can be at the club, you'll be on the bench, and, you know, I want you to start thinking about coaching and going into the academy. And I was like, Gaffer, you know, boss, I'm 33 years of age. I still think I can play. And that's when I left and went on. And at the time I was like, no, I could still play. But he was absolutely right to get rid of me at that time, because then it changed. The club got back into the Champions League. I was 33. And as much as you don't think you're getting old, there's certain things that show that you slow down, because the game was moving on. Me and Rob Lee went off to Derby and had 2 wonderful years together there and enjoyed our football together. But that's the competition. That's the nature of the beast that you're in. He's your teammate, he's your friend, but you're a professional. And at the end of the day, it's about playing and being out there to play. And, you know, at the end of it, playing, you know, 500 games at the top flight, I was happy to do that. You know, I spent a couple of years in lower league, but predominantly of that, most of them was in the top flight. And you just have to, you know, go with what your gut feelings is, to be single-minded. And even when I wasn't in the team, and there's a couple of months where I wasn't involved midway through my Newcastle career, had chances of moving. I'd spoken to a couple of clubs, but I wanted to stay. I wanted to fight for it. I wasn't going to walk away with the first obstacle. So that was my nature. I did it when I was a young kid, playing non-league, and to get back in. I wasn't going to walk away from Newcastle after 3 years and, you know, play for another club. And no disrespect for them, but anywhere I was going after Newcastle was a downward step, in my opinion. And that's why I stuck back in there and fought for my place with Kenny Dalglish, and then Ruud Gullit come in. I fought for my spot there. And then when Sir Bobby come in, I fought for my spot there. And that's what you have to do. That's what keeps you playing at a high level, is that competition of being on your toes. Because if you don't do well, someone's going to take your place. And I try and explain that to the American public here, is that when you train and you're a new player, if you do 1 or 2 training sessions that you're not good, there's a few remarks being made. There's a few people having a bit of banter and saying things to you. You have a bad game, you better fight for your spot the next game. You have 2 bad games, you're on the bench, and then you're waiting. So that's how ruthless it is. You know, look at Bielsa at Leeds. He done a wonderful job there, but you're out. you're out, yeah. And you know that's the nature of the business they're in. And you know, it can't be great, but that's what we buy into. And you know that when you're playing for a big club for Newcastle, that every week psychologically there might be a new player that's being linked. There might be someone else coming in, and you have to live with that. And it's hard, but it's part and parcel of the game.
You're one of the players who played both under Kevin Keegan and Sir Bobby, which are the 2 most appreciated and loved, admired managers of Newcastle. How would you compare the 2 of them? I mean, not who's better or what, but in terms of styles, in terms of personalities, what were your impressions from both of them?
KK was just full of energy and enthusiasm and passion. You know, he was so emotional. You remember the famous interview after the Leeds game to Sir Alex Ferguson. And, you know, I'd like to say as well on record, if this goes out, that there should be a statue for Kevin, because Sir Bobby's got one, War Jackie gets one anyway, and Big Al, Alan Shearer, they're moving that around. What Kevin Keegan did in the early 90s and the mid 90s is transformed the opinion of Newcastle Football Club, not in Newcastle, but globally. As you said, to go to Bulgaria, he made us a global brand, Kevin, with his style of football. And that was all down to him. Every single player of that part of entertainment obviously wanted to play for Newcastle, but I'd be lying if it said it wasn't a big part of Kevin Keegan, of when he met me in a hotel and the list of clubs that was interested in me. And I'd spoken to David Dean at Arsenal, but I met Kevin Keegan. And after just meeting him for 5 seconds, he said, come and join a big club. You'll love it. And, you know, things coming from him and his personality was wonderful. And when things was going well, there was no better. You know, my debut for Newcastle, most of my family was in London. Well, all of them, apart from my wife at the time, was up in the northeast. He got them on a train, first-class train, brought them up, put them in a hotel, made sure there was cards to look after them, to bring them to the game, take them back. He did that. All right, he got on the phone to his secretary, but he made sure that everybody was okay. And that's what Kevin was great at. If someone had a baby, there was flowers at the house the next day. But he just took care of his players so well. He got heated because he was so emotional, and then because of the takeover, he walked away. Like his reaction was, I'm going, it's not how I want it. So Bobby Robson was the whole package for me, you know, as a coach, as emotional, understanding the fans, understanding the media, understanding players, bringing someone like Kevin Gallagher in for £500,000 at the time, when, you know, he come into the club. He could have demanded more and wanted more, but he knew bringing Kevin Gallagher in from Blackburn, who was 32, 33, played with Alan, could play in different positions, but it gave time for Kieran Dyer, Craig Bellamy, not to play every minute of every game under pressure. They might play 60 minutes, then Kevin would come in. Kevin may start, and then Kieran may come in. Bellas may start, then Kevin would take his place. And just by doing that, gave us a time to get back into 8th or 9th, and then the following season we was back in the Champions League. And for him as a coach and him as a man, you know, we would be at Selhurst Park. We'd play bloody awful. It was a 1-1 draw. Sir Bobby was talking to their steward, their groundsman, for 45 minutes after the game, about what was going on, how he was doing. I'm like, Gaffer, we need to, but he loved talking about the game. He loved not just about him telling, I know a lot of people that talk about me. So Bobby was about the game, about people, about Alan, about Newcastle, about Arsenal. You know, he was just talking about everything about the game, and I learned so much about him as a person. You know, if you was there and said, "Hey, Sir Bobby, we've come from Bulgaria," he'd ask you about Bulgaria. You'll be asking about Newcastle. He'd be asking, "What's it like in Bulgaria? What's the football like? What's the stadiums like? What's the fans like? What's the food like?" He loved his food. He'd start talking to you about food. And you know, that for me encapsulates what Sir Bobby was. But I go back to what I said. There should be a statue for KK, because he just took Newcastle United, the football club, to a whole global idea and an experience of, when you think of the Premier League, you know, the Invincibles, the great Sir Alex Ferguson teams of Manchester United, the Mourinhos that they had, Pep now, Klopp, but Newcastle get in it, and we never won it. Sort of, you put Leicester in it, but you don't really, or Blackburn, but you do with Newcastle, you know, and that's the fans and obviously the players that we had. So, you know, he was a big part of that, Sir Bobby, and a huge loss, but a great football man as well. When you think of people, I went over to Porto when I took my son there to train in there, and I just mentioned Sir Bobby Robson. They was like, wow, he was like God over there. PSV, when we played them in the Champions League, we were speaking to a couple of people in the club. You mentioned Sir Bobby, they smile. What a gentleman, what a man he is. And Barcelona, you know, you ever watch on Netflix the documentary about how he handled that situation and the politics that went on at Barcelona. He did it with dignity. And when I listen to Pep Guardiola, I hear a lot of Sir Bobby's thinking and mindsets, and that's ingrained in me as well. And it's obviously ingrained in him, how Bobby has got dignity and how he used to be as a person and how he is. I take a lot of that in my life. Yeah, of course, from my father and my mum and brother and sister and me but a lot of it is how Sir Bobby was, because he learned a lot about treating people the right way, and particularly the world we live in at the moment and what we've gone through with COVID and everything else, is to treat people properly. And that's a great quality to have, because not everybody can do that. And Bobby had that with fans, with media. Even when they was sticking a knife in with him, he still kept his dignity and showed a lot of class. And that was a big thing with me. Kevin was great. Listen, as I said, Kevin Keegan was brilliant to be around and fun to be around. But Sir Bobby just had that whole aura about him as well.
Lovely.
Fantastic, Warren. Let's talk a bit about the current squad and the current season and the new ownership, basically. What do you make of the current squad? Do you think that we will survive this season? How do you find the new ownership? They of course come with new funds, new ideas, much different than the previous owner. How do you see the future for Newcastle United?
Guys,
I'm going to take... Go on.
So we have around 5-6 minutes until the end of our conversation. So yeah, Warren, sorry for that. If you can just brief it up a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. I'll make it short and sweet. Just not only the money that they brought in, it's how they did a silly thing like cleaning the windows of the stadium. Like I said, I went back there with my family and I was a bit embarrassed how the stadium looked. But they understand the area. So the ownership have gone in and understand what, not just about the money on the field. They needed to do that. They went there. I think they was overwhelmed by so much love and passion from the fans. They knew what the fans would like, but the fans went, we're going to give you everything. October, November, December. Come January, you better help us and back us. And they did that. They went out and got the right players at the right position, at the right time with the right experience. And even before that, I just felt Newcastle had enough togetherness to stay in the Premier League. Watching them against Brentford, I know they're going in a bad time, but they had an air of confidence. The red card obviously helped. But there's so much togetherness and spirit. Eddie's done a great job, Eddie Howe, of understanding. His first day when he was there until 11 o'clock at the training ground. He drove out and there was a fan standing there who'd been there 5 hours. Eddie didn't know this, but he stopped his car, got out the car and signed an autograph for him and walked away. For me, that tells me a lot about a person and about what he's going to do. And you hear it from Fraser the other day when he got interviewed, that he's changed the whole mindset of being at a football club like we used to do. We used to love going into training. Them players now love going into training. The environment's different, the feel-good factors. It come from the ownership, it's come from the coach, it's come from the players. But ultimately, when the fans celebrated, when the new owners took over, it come from them. Because I'd never seen that before, to have 5,000-10,000 fans at a stadium just because a new ownership's gone and a new one's come in. And that tells you a lot about the club.
Vlad, any other question to Warren? I wanted to ask him about the current squad, if he identifies any position that we need to strengthen basically in the summer. And I would like to, if you can wish the Bulgarian supporters, I told you many of us watched you live here back in 1999, 16th of September. I remember the date. It was the first time many of us were able to watch Newcastle live. We were in the stands kind of keeping quiet, who do we support, you know? But maybe you greet and you wish something to the Bulgarian supporters, Newcastle United. But if I think we have the time to address the question of weaknesses in the current squad, and how do you see the Bruno Guimaraes, Dan Burn, Matt Target? You mentioned that they're all quality players with experience. Chris Wood is also is doing a lot of, you know, unappreciated work right now on the pitch. Anything that we need to strengthen in the short term?
Yeah, listen, there's no doubt, you know, once we stay up, and hopefully we do, please God, I think we will stay up, we're going to need to strengthen again. You know, I still believe you need, you know, another midfield player, definitely another striker, depending on how you're going to play with another dominant centre half. Not only do you need the strength, but you need that added quality. We want to get back to challenging. That not necessarily go back and win everything, but we want to be challenging. So you need quality right the way out throughout the team. So as much as, you know, people have come in and they're new players, they're not maybe going to be for the long haul. Bruno, I think, is. I looked at him when he come on at the weekend, and he looks a player. He looks busy. He looked like a racehorse that had been held back, and he wanted to go out and prove the lovely little passes that he slid into players that maybe didn't have the pace. If you think of a Wilson there, or even other players further in the future, that you're going to have that little bit of a pace that can go forward and put them away. So right the way throughout the team, we need to strengthen first and foremost. I think it's, you know, another defender, another midfield player, fullback. Hopefully we get Taggart to stay. He looks solid, but we still need another player, Trippier. So you need depth of quality if you're going to challenge. And you need, like Mourinho used to have, 22, 23 really good players. We haven't got that at the moment, but we've got players that have now got confidence. They've got a foundation of how they're going to play. So that gives us a good stead. So from that going forward, we need to strengthen. But there is some good players in that squad. He's improved players. Joe Linton looks like a different player. Shelby looks a different player. And I think as a coach, your job in first and foremost is to improve the players you've got. And Eddie's done that, as well as adding in the quality that the club's done. Last but not least, I just want to thank the Bulgarian fans for getting behind us in 99, as you rightly said. We felt the energy in that stadium. It was a wonderful place. We enjoyed our time. We won as well, which is always nice to go away and win the game. And even now, with me being retired a long time, we still know that there's fans out there that reminisce about them times, about the Kevin Keegan era, the entertainers, Champions League, European football. So just to say to all the fans out there, we appreciate it. Keep supporting the tune. And if you ever get a chance, get over to St James's Park and go into Newcastle, into the city centre. You'll have a great time. You'll be well looked after by the people there. They're great people like you are, and enjoy your time and still keep supporting the team. It's going to be ups and downs. It's going to be a roller coaster, but that's what makes this club so special.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Warren. It has been a privilege talking to you. Vladi, please.
Well, I just want to return the favor and say that whenever you're in Bulgaria, just give us a call. We'd love to hear more about your stories. They're lovely. So many lovely words. I mean, like, Andrew been to some of the live shows, and it's fascinating to hear so many good things. So
yeah, Warren, we had, I think we mentioned this before, we had Peter Beardsley visiting us as a fan club back in 2018. He spent a couple of days here in Sofia. If you ever feel like traveling around Europe, you can be our VIP guest in Bulgaria. Feel invited, you and your family.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much. I'd enjoy that. You better keep the beer on ice. I'll be ready out there. I'll have a couple of beers with you. But yeah, whatever happens, I will take you. You'll be the first people I call up. Hopefully you'll look after me.
Thank you, Warren. Thank you for your time. Wishing you all the best, and love to hear you from again.
Cheers. All the best. Have a great week.
Bye-bye.